The will they won't they dance with Superman and Henry Cavill is shaping up to be an interesting one or a disappointing one depending on how you choose to look at things. Under the new leadership comes new direction, and with it also a brand new cast, and thus the vision of James Gunn might be a little bit more controversial than originally thought. So James Gunn is appointed as the co-CEO of DC, and Henry Cavill announces that he will be leaving The Witcher behind. Coincidence? I think not. At least that is what the internet said. When Henry Cavill first left the Netflix show, reports were all over the place and speculation was crazy. Most seemed to agree that he would only leave the show if something better was on the table, and everyone thought that that was Superman. Now, there were at least some rational thoughts sprinkled in between all of this. Although it made logical sense that Henry Cavill would return, it also made sense not to jump the gun, pun intended. No official announcement was made by DC, and even to this day James Gunn is still in the very early parts of his 10-year plan. Simply getting excited over the thought of Henry Cavill returning as Superman once again is silly, no matter how much sense it might make for him to return. Nothing is official until it is official, and if Henry Cavill did not sign the contract and DC did not make the announcement, everything is just a rumor. Now, with that said, I do not blame people who are excited to see the Man of Steel return. Henry Cavill signed on to do 3 movies as Superman, and that is exactly what he did. He did the Man of Steel, he did Batman vs Superman, and he ended his contract with the Justice League. Now, I do not know why they decided to do that. Only 3 movies makes no sense if 2 of them were going to be movies that is not even standalone movies for Superman himself. This does also go back to the original criticism of the old DCU. Things were extremely rushed, and thus we never truly got to see a proper Superman universe. Now, not all of that can just be chalked up to the rush, as DC's treatment of the character has also been piss poor for years now. I don't know what they have against Superman, but they just seem so uninterested in him. Man of Steel came out in 2013, and for the next 4 years they just did nothing with him. They threw him into a movie that he should have never been in, they killed him off, and then they rushed him into the Justice League. On the opposite side of things though, with Wonder Woman, between just 2016 when she was introduced and 2020, we just got to see so much more of her. She was in Batman vs Superman, she did a standalone movie, she did the Justice League, and then she got a sequel. Now, I don't know, but that just doesn't seem balanced to me at all. I don't know how you get to push out 4 movies with Wonder Woman between 2016 and 2020 that includes 2 standalone movies, and for Henry Cavill, you had him since 2013, and all you can do is 1 Man of Steel movie, kill him, and then do the Justice League. And don't even get me started on the 40 Batman movies that was released in the last 5 years. So by this point, I'm sure that people have heard the news that the Man of Steel 2 movie has hit a few bumps in the road. This big report from the Hollywood Reporter themselves went into quite a bit of detail, highlighting all of the things that we can expect from DC projects going forward, and one thing that obviously stood out the most was the plans or the lack thereof that they had for Superman and Henry Cavill. They say here deep in the report the rest of the DC slate remain in flux, or at least is being kept deep in a pocket of Gunn's own utility belt, but there are several rumors and possible scenarios to consider ahead of next week's meeting. The first, which builds on the shuttering of Jenkins' Wonder Woman 3, is the closing curtain of the Snyderverse and the Euroscat cast by filmmaker Zack Snyder for his Justice League. This one sees the shuttering of the Man of Steel 2 with a returning Henry Cavill and having no more Aquaman fronted by Jason Momoa. These characters are to cameo in Flash, a highly anticipated time travel adventure movie that is due to release on June 16th. Cavill shot his part for a cameo in September, but sources say that there is a debate inside of the studio as to whether or not to keep the cameo and if its inclusion promises something that the studio would have no plans on delivering. So that is obviously not the news that you want to hear if you are a fan of Henry Cavill and what he did with the Superman character. Again, James Gunn just seems dead set in his own vision for the future, and with that there just isn't going to be a place for the Snyderverse anywhere, and honestly I do think that is fair. If Warner Bros was happy with the Snyderverse, they would have kept Zack Snyder, but they did not do that. They hired James Gunn to lead, so obviously he needs to revamp. If he just picked up where Zack Snyder left off and changed nothing, then what is the point? Now with that said though, I can understand why people are upset with Henry Cavill potentially not returning. It does suck, but the big question has always been, how does a 40-year-old Henry Cavill fit into a 10-year-old plan that will most certainly end with a Justice League movie, and what is a 50-year-old Superman going to look like? And it seems like the answer is he does not fit in with the plans at all, and right now they might want to go with a 20-something-year-old who will be 50-something when the 10-year plan is over. Right now things just seems to be absolutely crazy when it comes to the future of the brand new DCU, but I do also think that that is not a bad thing at all. Changes are good, and although we have to say goodbye to some of the actors that we have grown to love over the last decade and what they were able to do with some of these superheroes, I am also sure that the next wave of talent will be able to come to the table and deliver something equally great. I'm not thrilled over the idea of losing Henry Cavill as Superman, but let's be real, they have been treating him and Superman terribly for years now. Despite all of the reports though, I am still hopeful that we will see Henry Cavill as the Man of Steel one more time. After everything, I do think that he does deserve a proper send-off.